Now, we've been blessed with some wonderful players during the Guardiola era at Manchester City, but I thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at the best 10 signings under Guardiola's reign. It's been a wonderful best part of 10 years. There really has been some absolute legends. Some of our best players, of course, arrived before Guardiola was even there, like De Bruyne, Vinny Kompany, 𝙏𝙬𝙨𝙪𝙚, but he's also made some pretty astute signings with the stewardship of cheeky Brickenstein, of course, helping him alongside the way. And I know this list is going to cause a few arguments in the comments, but please do get involved in the comments below. Please do let me know your top 10. It's very subjective. This list could be randomised, and any order that came out, I could argue for it. They really are that good, this bunch of players. But I've got a few little sort of set rules to consider when I'm trying to do this. It's not just how good the players are, because obviously the quality could be defined in many ways. I also want to consider the longevity, how many title races they've been involved in, the price that we paid, the versatility, the commitment, obviously their individual awards, success, a whole bunch of factors. Of course, don't forget, if you are a fan of this kind of content, if you want more of this kind of content, let me know in the comments and give the video a like, help support the channel, a lifelong Manchester City fan, and subscribe while you are here. So let's get into number 10 on this very seriously, I spent ages painting over this, very difficult list to make. Now, in at number 10, it's Riyad Mahrez. He had to be on this list somewhere. 236 games for Manchester City, 78 goals and 56 assists after he signed from Leicester in 2018 for £60 million. Of course, involved in 4 Premier League titles, a couple of FA Cups, a Champions League. He did leave, unfortunately, to the Saudi League. He's lower on this list than some people probably would like, but for a reason. As much as Mahrez was absolutely brilliant in a Manchester City shirt, he felt like he rarely ever truly established himself as a regular starter. He had plenty of spells where he did that, but he never really felt like he was purposely or directly a nailed-on star in the 11. Having said that, this guy was absolutely mesmeric. The cold nights in the Champions League when Mahrez had his gloves on immediately spring to mind, where short sleeve top, gloves out, winter Mahrez was absolutely special. Ramadan Mahrez was a thing as well, of course. Honestly, this guy was, he's one of those guys who gets better the more you're further away from him. Riyad Mahrez, of course, a fantastic player. A little bit divisive early on in his tenure, if I'm being honest. Maybe because of the super fandom with the fanboys that he brought along, but also because I think he took a year or two to adapt to how Guardiola wanted him. A little bit slightly greedy at the start, if I'm being honest. Very much went for goal often, which was fun, don't get me wrong, but when you'd been conditioned to a possession heavy side, you felt every now and then he wasn't always on the same wavelength as his teammates. But when it did click, it was absolutely beautiful. And now looking back as time's moved on, I absolutely do miss Riyad Mahrez. The skill that he had, the explosive ability, the incredible touch, probably one of the best, if not the best touches I've ever seen in a City shirt. A couple of people on this list might argue with that, definitely. But either way, a fantastic player, £60 million, an awful lot of money. I think at the time it might have been a record signing, but he came in, it was mesmeric, he was beautiful, and he fell in love with this club like we fell in love with Riyad Mahrez. And number 9 is Aymeric Laporte, signed, of course, for £57 million from Spain, from Athletic Bilbao in 2018. It took a little bit of time to get him. We went in once, he turned us down. We went back, got the release clause done, and he joined in 2018 in January. A rare January signing, 180 games, 12 goals and 4 assists, and he was absolutely remarkable at times, actually. I think we probably forget, because of time and because it ended reasonably slowly, just how good Laporte was at Manchester City. Laporte is on this list because I felt like a few players on this list, he was pivotal in changing how Manchester City played. We were good and we were getting going anyway in that 17-18 season, but I felt he came in and actually made us a better side. We were brilliant in 27-18, and Laporte slotted in absolutely seamlessly. Those diagonal pinged passes, the confidence stepping into midfield. There were some maybe small question marks about his suitability in the latter stages of the Champions League, but I'll never forget what Laporte did. And it wasn't just the fact that, you know, he was brilliant. He also got in the PFA Team of the Year at one point. And there was a season towards the end where he played, I think it was the Aston Villa season where Gundogan scored in the last minute. He played through the pain barrier there. And I'll never also forget his face when he sat on the pitch realising that maybe his time had come and he was about to move on. Laporte is one of those guys that I don't think time's been that kind to, because of a couple of high-profile mistakes. And we've moved on very comfortably with the likes of Ruben Diaz and so on. And Nathan Ake came in and got into the side and felt a little bit more reliable towards the Champions League running. But I think Laporte was an exceptionally gifted and incredibly talented centre-back that changed how City played and was a massive part of this ridiculous run that Guardiola undertook at Manchester City. Laporte, an elegantly gifted player, and another that I think time will be kind to as we look back. And I think he's another guy that fell in love with Manchester City as well. Yes, too good to be playing where he is right now, if I'm being honest with you. Laporte, a cracking player, and in my opinion, rightfully on this list. Johnny Stones, Johnny Stones. In at number 8, John Stones, the Barnsley Beckenbauer, signed back in 2016. He's nearly done a decade at Manchester City. He joined as a young boy from Everton, and he's now, he's not left yet, but he does leave. He'll leave as a man who's accomplished everything that club football has to offer, domestically at very least in England. 277 games, 19 goals and 9 assists. It does feel like John Stones hasn't played enough football, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room. There were times when John Stones was in and out the side. He nearly left at one point, and I know that as a fact because he couldn't quite find his form. But he has to be on this list because of that redemption arc for me. An incredibly likeable player, PFA Team of the Year twice, but it was that treble season where John Stones really wrote his name down in Manchester City folklore. The UEFA Champions League Team of the season, of course, man of the match, with a truly special, ridiculous, one-of-a-kind performance in the Champions League final where he completed the most amount of dribbles in a Champions League game since Messi. Or was it final or game? I don't know. Either way, John Stones turned into Zidane in that final. It was absolutely absurd, which got him in the FIFA Men's World 11 that year as well. And clearly and utterly stamped himself as a fan favourite. Of course, injuries have probably robbed him of about 200 games more than he probably should have. But I think that's the only thing that stops John Stones from being a Manchester City all-timer and a legend. I think he has to be on this list because I think of Guardiola and I think of those early signings and I think of Guardiola talking about John Stones having bigger balls, as he said, than anyone in the room. And Guardiola's always stood by John Stones and he's grew at Manchester City. And personally, I love that story. I love how he was on the verge of leaving because he couldn't quite put that consistent run of games together and he had the mistake in him, but eventually he found his own slot, his own rhythm, and he became a better player, one of the best centre-backs in world football, only let down by injuries, but absolutely, in my personal opinion, a Manchester City legend, rightfully on the list. He had to be on the list somewhere. Bernardo Silva, a wonderful player, one of my favourite ever to join Manchester City. Only at number 7. This could be as high as number 2 or 3 depending on your mileage, but I tell you what, there's very little between the next 6-7 players anyway. 394 games for Manchester City, which is quite absurd when you think about it. 69 goals, 69 assists, consistent there, Bernardo. Nice. Signed for 43 million from Monaco in 2017. As he said in his own words, you couldn't beat me, so you bought me. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the little Portuguese magician wasn't wrong. A wonderful player, absolutely momentous, just huge at times for Manchester City. And I know this past year or so might have clouded some people's opinions of him as his form's dropped a little bit, but we really do need to remember just how good this guy was. Cast your mind back to the Real Madrid game when he destroyed them. Cast your mind to the Liverpool game back in 2019 when we won 2-1, when he was absolutely everywhere, relentless alongside Fernandinho. And he's played left back at times, played right midfield, played as a false 9, played as a box-to-box midfielder, a creative midfielder, done stints on the left wing as well, and rightfully in the PFA Team of the Year twice. Their City Player of the Year directly in 18-19 season. He won Goal of the Season once, which I think was the Villa volley, which is beautiful. He's been the Champions League Team of the season, the FIFA World 11. Bernardo Silva is an astonishing footballer, technically brilliant, relentlessly hard-working, likeable, incredibly popular in the squad, a fan favourite, and unequivocally a Manchester City legend. Look, if we hadn't had David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne and people like that, people would be talking about this guy as one of our best ever. I think he is anyway, but the level above him is just so ridiculously high. But he's touching that. He's touching greatness. Bernardo Silva, I love the man. I absolutely do. Rightfully at number 7. Ruben Diaz was nearly at number 7. I and ahed for a long time with his Portuguese brother Bernardo Silva, but I went for number 6 simply because I don't think he's really had a bad season. Maybe this current one, but he's been remarkable since he joined Manchester City. That debut season, we talk a lot about Haaland's, spoiler, he's coming soon, Haaland's debut season at Manchester City, but Ruben Diaz's in that first year was just ridiculous. Coming off the back of a very disappointing campaign, Ruben Diaz signed for 65 million quid in 2020 from Benfica streaky. You've got to bear in mind as well that we nearly tried to sign Maguire, Jules Koundé as well. He was very much the backup to the backup, but he came in. A lot of people were a little bit reluctant to get behind the idea of the transfer, and I saw there was some doubt at the time, but he came in and was absolutely brilliant. In that debut season, you got the Football Writers Association Player of the Year, the PFA Team of the Year, the Club Player of the Year. He's in the Champions League Team of the Season twice. He was the Premier League Player of the Season in 2021, the Champions League Defender of the Season in 2021. I think he was also in his debut season in the FIFA World 11. Absolutely ridiculous accomplishments for a centre-back to be that good. And it's not an exaggeration to say he changed the trajectory of Manchester City. We went on to win 4 leagues in a row off the back of signing Ruben Dias. And he has had a slow season this year. But to win 4 out of 5 and be the catalyst, the captain, a very un-Guardiola signing as well. He wasn't the most technically gifted City centre-back we've ever had. But he slotted into that Vincent Kompany role just when we needed it. When El Capitan left, got his statue with a celebration. We needed a warrior, a leader, and Ruben Dias came in with that immense battling mentality. A player so good, after 207 games, I named my son after him, Ruben. Not quite technically, but why not? A wonderful player. He had to be on the list somewhere. Some would argue he's too low, but the ones above him, I think they deserve it for different reasons, which we'll get onto soon. I think he might be 2 or 3 places too low here, but Erling Haaland, either way, look, the only reason he's not higher is because he joined in 2022, I would argue. 137 games, 119 goals, and 18 assists. He's got a goal or assist a game. That is absolutely absurd. I was going to list what he's accomplished at Manchester City, but I just can't. It's not even possible. The debut season of all seasons, a man absolutely robbed of the Ballon d'Or. He won every trophy that year, every individual trophy, including Team of the Year, Player of the Season, Football Writers, Young Player, blah, blah, blah. Everything you couldn't mention other than the Ballon d'Or because Messi won a World Cup. It was absolutely robbery. Don't get me wrong, I think Messi's the greatest to ever do it, but no one had a better season than Erling Haaland that year. He was absolutely absurd, breaking the Premier League goal-scoring record. Of course, a boyhood blue as well. An absolute legend in the making, a man who signed a 10-year contract. Erling Haaland is a freak of nature. Probably will be higher, but once again, he only joined 3 years ago, and since then, he's broke record after record after record. Probably not even had his best season, yet he's still on for a remarkable goal return. Haaland is fantastic. People try and play him down all the time, given the fact that he's just a goal scorer. He's not. 18 assists will prove that, and he created plenty of chances there as well. But the idea that being the best, just the best, what the most important thing in football is some kind of negative, is childish, absurd reasoning in a side that doesn't always play to his strengths. I sometimes wonder how many goals Erling Haaland would have scored in the peak Manchester City sides of 17-18, where we had Sane, Sterling, De Bruyne, David Silva, either side of Aguero. If it was Haaland as well, and he stays fitter than Aguero ever did at Manchester City, touch wood, I think he would have getting 50, 60 goals a season, every single season. I truly believe that. Haaland's potential, I don't think we've even tapped it yet. I think he's absolutely absurd as a footballer. And now he's growing into a leadership role as well. He's well on his way, if he isn't already, becoming a club legend. The catalyst that led us to a Champions League trophy, a treble, finally. Erling Haaland, a phenomenal footballer. And he changed the trajectory of Manchester City Football Club. I love the man. What a player. Love you, Erling, so much. Now, this will probably surprise a few people that he's ahead of Erling Haaland there, but I think he has to be. Look, you guys probably know my personal feelings towards Kyle Walker. I don't really like him off the pitch at all, but he's an insanely good signing. Kyle Walker is arguably the best defender we've ever had at Manchester City. You could argue Vincent Kompany and people like that, yes. But in terms of the maximising their ability in their role, Kyle Walker is probably the best defensive right back England has ever produced, full stop. I think he's absolutely absurd. I chose that picture alongside him for a reason, because ask Mbappe, ask Neymar, ask Vinicius Jr., the best wingers in world football, what they think of Kyle Walker, and they'll tell you he's the best they've ever played against. Not my words, theirs. 319 games, 6 goals, 23 assists, signed for 50 million in 2017 from Spurs. He's gone on to be in the PFA Team of the Year 3 times already, Champions League Team of the Season, FIFA World 11. He captained the side to a Premier League course last season. It ended really poorly poorly because his body caught up to him. But Kyle Walker was a ridiculous signing. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that the system that we played would just simply not have been possible without Kyle Walker. The physicality, not the technically the best, but he got so much better under Guardiola. The physicality and the defensive brilliance that he had to shut down an entire side of the pitch allowed Cancelo and co just to get forward and do whatever they want to. It allowed City to be so aggressive and so bold in possession because he covered an entire side of the pitch. That pace, he might just be the fastest footballer to ever play it. I really believe there's a good argument for that. And it's not just that, the focus he had at his very best. I think because he had such a poor ending to his City career, we've created this narrative in our heads that maybe he wasn't quite as good as you remember. No. Watch Pete Kyle Walker and you realise he's a defensive monster. A ridiculous opponent for any world winger. And I don't think there's anyone he couldn't have stopped at his very best. Kyle Walker, one of our best ever signings in the club history. An absolute legend. The question marks, of course, away from him off the pitch and so on with his attitude and all that kind of stuff. Not his attitude, his personal life. Very liked amongst the squad for what it's worth. But by no means will I ever downplay just how good he is on the pitch. A phenomenon. Easily Manchester City's all-time greatest 11. And like many players who joined that year, a catalyst for great success for Manchester City Football Club. And at number 3, for the same reasons as Kyle Walker, Ederson has to be here. I put Ederson even higher because 361 games, 6 assists. Everything we've done at Manchester City simply is not possible without Ederson in goal. I have never seen a keeper like Ederson in my life when he joined Manchester City. This is why he's on this list, because I think Ederson, we talk about Haaland being a freakish striker. I think Ederson is that freakish as well in his own right. I used to sit there early on in his reign at Manchester City and just laugh out loud at his ability with the ball at his feet. And you guys did too. He's normalised technical brilliance as a goalkeeper. Ederson, remarkable. 361 games. He signed for 35 million in 2017. From Benfica, and he was absolutely immense early on. Of course, he was correcting a failed signing in Claudio Bravo, and he went on to be a number 1 for the best part of a decade again, and he's still here as this video has been recorded. He might leave at the end of the season, but Guardiola is right to lavish him with praise. Occasionally question marks over his shot stopping, but he's clearly Premier League quality. He's clearly Champions League quality. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have been the Premier League Team of the Year twice. He wouldn't have won the Golden Glove 3 times. He wouldn't have been the best FIFA keeper in 2023. He wouldn't have been the FIFA World 11 in 2024. He's been involved in so much brilliance that Manchester City fans have probably gotten used to him. But it only takes seeing our backup keeper, be it Ortega, be it Zach Steffen, whoever over the years, to realise just how good Ederson is as a Manchester City footballer. A unique footballer. There's been keepers very good with their feet, people like �荷, and even Alisson and so on. But there's been no one like Ederson. I'm sorry, he's on another level entirely. A guy so good that if he played at left back for Manchester City, I would be genuinely quite comfortable with it. Against the right teams, of course. But Ederson is absolutely in our folklore. The best shot stopper City have ever had? No. But the most integral, the most important keeper that we've ever had? Absolutely. There is no keeper in the world, and I truly believe this, that could have had the impact on Manchester City more than Ederson. An incredible signing for 35 million quid. We really would not have won what we did or been as good as we did without Ederson. The amount of times we all took deep breaths when he passed the ball across his own goal comfortably. One of a kind keeper. 6 assists as well, by the way. He broke the assist record for a keeper this season as well, with 3 assists. Ridiculous. Ederson, a Manchester City legend. And now we're at number 2. You probably know who the last 2 are. This is a personal opinion. It's a controversial one, but Rodri is in at number 2. Another legend at Manchester City. He signed in 2019 for 62 million. He's been here for 6 years already. 260 games, 26 goals and 30 assists. A Ballon d'Or winner. Rodri, an absolute remarkable footballer. Champions League player of the season. Champions League team of the season. PFA team of the year twice. FIFA Club World Cup Golden Ball winner. FIFA men's and best men's World 11 as well. Remarkable stuff. The only reason he's probably not number 1 is because he did have a slow year or 2 when he first joined. But ever since then, he's been the most complete midfielder in world football over the last 2 or 3 years and rightfully the Ballon d'Or winner. A man with a Midas touch. Everything Rodri touches just turns to gold. A remarkable player. Will probably go on to be Manchester City's captain. Ridiculous. What more can he achieve? Anything he wants to. Truly, truly brilliant. But I didn't have him number 1 Because I think when I consider all my factors, when I consider the price that we paid, the longevity, the versatility, the leadership, the elegance, the important goals, and the consistency, the problem solving, the intelligence, if I was to choose someone that was the brains of the team often for Guardiola, I probably would choose this guy as number one. The first signing through the door, for me, it feels poetic to choose Ilkay Gundogan as Guardiola's best ever signing. 343 games, 62 goals, 39 assists, and signed for just 20 million as an injured player from Dortmund in 2016. I absolutely love Ilkay Gundogan. He might not be the best player to ever play for Manchester City under Guardiola. He isn't, in fact. He's not the best overall footballer. Probably many on this list might be better. But when I think for value and think for versatility and big moments, Gundogan has that clutch gene more than pretty much anyone else. He's absolutely absurd. I think of Gundogan's story, and I think it's admirable. I think it's brilliant. And I think it's a man who's grown at Manchester City through a lot of adversity. He did actually have to wait for his chance behind the brilliance of Fernandinho, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne. But the thing for me, when everything really changed, was in that 18-19 season when Fernandinho was out and he played as a defensive midfielder and we won 14 games in a row. He was absolutely insane that time. And then you think of his leadership in the treble winning season, you know, when he scored a brace in the FA Cup final. He was absolutely remarkable in the running there, scoring big goal after big goal. You think of the famous Aston Villa moment when, you know, off the bench, but gave us the most iconic moment, you'd argue, after Aguero until Rodri as well. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. An incredibly likeable, smart footballer. Of course, his second spell at City hasn't been quite as good, unfortunately. But Ilkay Gundogan, when you think of what we pay for him, you think of the consistency, you think of his roles as a complete midfielder, as a false nine, as a number 8, as a number 6, as a leader of intense value, of intense intelligence and just class. Ilkay Gundogan, for me, sits at the top of the tree as for pound, for value, as Manchester City's best signing under Guardiola. He could have been down at number 6 or 7 quite easily. But I think there's something poetic about it. He had to be my number one for personal reasons. I don't think he's the best player on this list, but I think there's something beautiful about him being the first and often the most important or often the most reliable. Gundogan is a remarkable footballer, a Manchester City legend, wore the captain's armband with elegance. He led us. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we won a treble under his stewardship as the captain to a treble, because he stepped out the shadow of David Silva when he left and became an integral part of what Manchester City achieved. I don't think Haaland has that much of a great start either without the intelligence alongside Ilkay Gundogan supporting him in the box. His link-up play, his brilliance, his leadership, his maturity, his versatility, his understanding of the game. Ilkay Gundogan is an absolute absurd footballer. That is my top 10. Now, you're probably thinking, where's this guy? Where's that guy? If I'm being honest, Ake, Cancelo, in my head, I was going over and over. They were about the same level for me. You could talk about names like, if you wanted to, Leroy Sané, people like that. There was a few notable mentions as well. Akanji was a bargain. You could argue for him for 14 million was absolutely fantastic. Alvarez as well. There's a few players that were very close to this cut-off list. But I think these 10 for me are the ones that deserve to be there. Once again, if I just pressed shuffle on this list and it ended in a different order, I wouldn't argue with it, because you could argue Haaland should be number 1. You could argue Ruben Dias could be number 1. Bernardo Silva could be number 2 for whatever reason. That is the beauty of this list, and also a beautiful reminder of just how good we've got it now as Manchester City fans. Guys, that is my list. Let me know yours. Give the video a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you soon for another video.